Thank you for joining us this morning. We are streaming live on YouTube as we're walking through our 5 weeks webinar series of igniting engagement strategies for motivation and motivating employees. So thanks again for joining. Happy Friday. We made it, and here we go. So if you haven't met me yet, I'm Dr. Myra Austin. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Management Cues, and we specialize in a unique immersive training experience that focuses particularly with managers and the experiences that they're having, helping them feel seen, heard, and learn how to make an impact in their environment. So unique experience, we are fully backed by neuroscience and scientifically proven to work. So that's a reason why we're a little bit different. And so we provide custom training programs, tools, you name it, workshops, all types of resources. We're committed to accessibility when it comes to training in the workforce and creating a better, healthier place for all of us to operate in. Okay, with that said, we'll go ahead and get started. So today for our week 4, our second to last week, we're going to be covering empowering through autonomy and fostering a sense of ownership with our teams as managers. So as managers, part of what we do and hopefully do well is execute and get things done. However, commonly we see managers in the workforce who have difficulty letting go. And not only have difficulty letting go, but have difficulty empowering others through autonomy and trust. And so that comes up quite often, at least in my experience over the past 20 years, training and working with the development of managers and leaders in the workplace. So let's take a look at why that is and what we can do to change that type of behavior so that we feel confident as managers, we're able to trust easier, and we understand the bigger picture, which is ultimately what helps us build our capacity to lead. So autonomy at work measures employees' freedom in the performance of their jobs. Managers can empower teams by fostering workplace autonomy. So while this is proven and it is true, it can prove difficult for managers. But data and research emphasizes that in reimagining how we should work, particularly with middle managers, is carving out a new way to experience the workforce, and it enhances a sense of purpose and autonomy in the modern workplace, which a lot of our team members out there, that is what they're looking for. They're looking for autonomy. They're looking for a higher sense of purpose. And that's been a long time coming. As the workplace has evolved, this is one of the areas that is becoming critical for managers to master if they want to continue to be relevant. So this quote struck me as I was putting our webinar together, because the Harvard Business Review is taking a look at where middle management is going. And so 61% of employees reporting that they would prefer if management allowed team members to come into the office when they need to and work from home when they need to. Our data also shows that the flexibility they want is conditional upon their ability to exercise it in a way that best fits them. In other words, it's conditional upon autonomy. What all of that is saying is that the autonomy that's created by giving people an opportunity to exercise control over their decisions, that creates the ultimate positive fulfillment of their desire. So 61% of employees is a really high number. And so as managers, as leaders, it's up to us to redefine how do we provide people more flexibility in their own decision-making process. And while depending on a business model, everybody working remotely or everybody having flexibility may not be feasible, there may be other ways of how we incorporate freedom around decision making that we should be looking at. All right, so let's keep going here. So fostering a culture of trust. So autonomy breeds trust, and so they're interconnected in that way. So to build trust, You have to show confidence in your team's abilities. And so sometimes in the day-to-day interactions, managers go wrong when you can feel that there's an absence of trust in addition to the lack of decision making around it. So you want to avoid over checking people's work. You want to focus on outcomes rather than process to a degree, right? So you want to make sure that there's a balance in your approach and that the pressure isn't 100% on you, that you distribute that pressure and that ownership. That will help work towards trust. So promoting open communication. So open communication is what allows us as managers to mitigate risk, to continue to build trust, and to ensure that the right exchange of information is happening. So to create a safe environment where employees feel comfortable sharing ideas and feedback, you want to check and address challenges without dictating solutions. So you want to open up the floor, right? You want it to feel like it's all of us making decisions versus just one person. And that can be challenging if the culture of the environment has always been to escalate decision making or to only leave decision making to a singular person in the environment. You want to invest in development. So the only way you can continue to create sustainable autonomy is by training people on how to get there and what it means and how can they recreate it, right? So you want to provide opportunities for employees to develop new skills and grow in their roles. You want to trust them to get there and learn from their experiences so that the pressure is not 100% on you as a manager, it's distributed. You want to encourage participation in decision making and projects outside of their immediate responsibilities. So you want to open the floor, and you could do this cautiously but steadily and continue to immerse people in the component of ownership around what is happening in their environment. So as managers and leaders, our eyes are always on us. And so having that degree of awareness, we have to ensure that we're demonstrating independent decision making and a proactive approach to our own role. So, just like we would want it to see some autonomy and decision making from our team members, we want to be able to represent that and demonstrate that with our own leadership and our own authority around our role. We want to share your experiences of taking ownership and learning from mistakes. So it's critical. It's critical for people in the workplace to see people in authoritative positions or in leadership positions or roles admit that there is vulnerability around what they are doing. Having an impression or an image that you're invincible actually is counterproductive and works against autonomy because it makes people feel like the decision has to be left up to this one person or this one role. Otherwise, it all falls apart, right? So that's the opposite of autonomy and trust and confidence in the ability of decision making. So we want to be careful with how we model behaviors in environments where, for example, everything's left up to the CEO or everything's left up to a particular experienced employee in the environment, and there's not enough autonomy or freedom around decision making. What ends up happening is that team members have a codependency on that person or that role having the final word for everything. So what ends up happening is there's this a huge amount of pressure on this one person when really it should be distributed for it to be healthy. You want to celebrate successes and learn from failures. So you want to acknowledge when employees are successfully taking ownerships of tasks and projects and stepping into that world of decision making. You want to view mistakes as learning opportunities that are encouraging growth rather than penalizing errors. So when we talked a minute ago about modeling behaviors, we have to take into account the things that we do reactively. Our facial expressions when somebody makes a mistake, our comments when somebody makes a mistake, our temper, right? If our temper rises while people are making mistakes, they're going to feel like there's a component of punishment there. And so they're going to be less likely to try again or improve. And the reality is, we only get better when we practice. So be mindful of those things as you're celebrating success, as you're acknowledging or working through mistakes, and as you're modeling behavior. So these are some common pitfalls that managers experience when they're trying to create autonomy. So, I know it's easy enough to say, hey, let's just create autonomy in the environment. But when you're working with people, it's a little bit more dynamic than that, and it's a little bit more complicated. So here's what you want to stay away from. You want to stay away from micromanaging. You want to make sure you're delegating successfully and that you're delegating tasks that have a higher sense of purpose, not meaningless, easy tasks that anybody can do. You want to be a little bit more thoughtful in your delegating if your objective is to increase better decision making and increase autonomy. You want to make sure that goals are clear. The absence of clarity around goals creates a decrease in autonomy and an increase in overdependence or codependence even, because they're going to constantly need to redirection because they are not clear on goals. You want to make sure you're not overloading and providing too much freedom. People do need guidance, but what they don't need is micromanaging. They don't need every single step of the way, right? And they need freedom to make mistakes and learn from them. You want to make sure that you're supporting risk taking. It's okay to take some risk. You have to in order to grow, right? Growth is uncomfortable. You make mistakes when you grow. It's all part of increasing autonomy and more effective decision making. You want to make sure that you're not ignoring the feedback your employees are giving you. So as you're creating autonomy, as you're improving their decision making and their independence around it, you want to listen to how they're feeling about it. They might be scared, they might be nervous, they might feel insecure. It's okay. Walk them through that. And after a few rounds of that, eventually they'll gain confidence and security and will, in fact, know how to make better decisions around the given task. You want to make sure that you exhibit trust consistently. So what I mean by that is, if you say it's okay to make mistakes, but then you get upset that a mistake was made, that's inconsistent, right? If they make a mistake, walk them through it, motivate them through it, and make sure that there's no punishment attached to that. You want to make sure that when they're given this freedom, when they're given autonomy, that they have the resources to successfully complete or comply or consider the decision that they need to make. So here's a get started list for you guys. If autonomy is difficult or confusing, or just something that is really going to place you outside of your personal comfort zone, which it can. Letting go is difficult for all of us. Change is difficult for all of us. And so there's definitely a way to approach this. So you want to start by assessing your current practices. You want to take a look at how you're currently communicating around autonomy, around trust, and you want to take a look at yourself and ensure that what you're doing and what you're saying matches. It sounds simple, but there's a lot of self-awareness that has to play out for us to really realize if our behavior is actually contradicting what we're saying. And you want to set a clear vision of what you want your team to achieve. You want to start small, right? So you can't change the entire workplace and create it fully autonomous place. It takes little steps at a time. You want to demonstrate confidence in your team. You want to tell them that you believe that they can do it and that here's how they get there, right? You want to give them some guidance around it. You want to give away some authority to make some decisions. And it doesn't always have to necessarily be relevant to their specific role. It could be a little bit wider than that. Think about the different areas that you make decisions around. That could be an opportunity for development, could be an opportunity to motivate or instill confidence in a team member, and then offer training and mentorship. If you want to create autonomy and trust, and it's difficult for the person to trust or to take on decision making. Think of ways to train them around those areas or provide guidance that'll help them build that skill. And debrief with your team to evaluate if the process is working. We only get better through feedback as people in general, and that includes us as managers and leaders. So it's okay to tell your team, can I get your feedback on how I'm managing this? How do you feel about it? We don't have to know everything at all times, and we're not responsible for knowing everything either, or solving every problem, or making every single decision. That is not what our role actually encompasses. But we do have to make sure that, we're aligning resources, we're executing effectively, that kind of thing. Sometimes as managers, we put a lot on our plate and we put a lot of pressure on what we're supposed to deliver. So you want to adjust your approach as needed. It's okay to adjust things slightly to see and test how they would work with your team. Okay. So if you're not in a super autonomous type of environment and your team seems to be impacted negatively because of it, consider that the autonomy that they experience is actually a proven motivator. So we'll get into that. So the feeling of autonomy is fascinating because autonomy is the feeling of having a choice. And when autonomy is taken away, it's deeply upsetting for people. And this is just embedded in who we are and how we're built. The sense of autonomy is a bigger driver of reward and threat at all ages. So it doesn't matter how old we are, from child, early years to senior adult years. Autonomy actually has a very deep effect on how we feel about things. And so the sense of autonomy and having control really determines how well we adjust to how we function. So providing autonomy in the workplace does create an opportunity for people to change their behavior around what they're doing. So interesting connection. And we don't talk about it very much, but autonomy actually has a neuroscience component. So autonomy is actually the strongest predictor of intrinsic motivation, meaning that when we create opportunities for autonomy in our team setting, we are enabling different ways of our team feeling motivated. And it comes from a place inside. It's not extrinsic, right? It's not because of a financial gain. It's not because of an outward reward. It's because of how they feel. And that is an amazing way to motivate a team in a very strategic way. It's a subtle way, but it works because that is how we're wired. So interesting piece of information there. Okay, so for today, these are our key takeaways. So autonomy is not a just nice to have factor. As people, we need it in order to drive our intrinsic motivation. So as managers, I encourage you to test the boundaries of autonomy and what that can do to ignite the motivation on your team. A little bit of freedom goes a long way because of our natural feelings around choice. And sometimes when we feel like choices being taken away from us, it can create a shutdown type of effect in people. So keep that in mind. Very much a direct correlation to intrinsic motivation. Managers who do not understand the impact of the absence of autonomy and what that does in their environment can't effectively motivate their team. So balance is always what I tell, the managers that I partner with to strive for. You want to strive for balance, not perfection. And balance includes an understanding and awareness of what people are actually feeling, what they're going through, and what actually works for them. So think about how much freedom you're putting out into your team and into the environment, and whether you're self-aware enough of what you need to work on. So we are intrinsically motivated by autonomy. So, a question that comes up frequently with managers and leaders as they're strategizing rewards or incentives or benefits, and if I'm assisting them with it or making decisions around it, is we seem to think that motivation is solely linked to pay or solely linked to a benefit package, right? And so, autonomy shows us that that's not the case, that even some freedom and flexibility around decisions that the employee can themselves make can make a significant difference in how they function and how they feel about the role that they're playing. Trust only happens when there is a degree of autonomy in the workplace. And so, trust is one of those things that's very delicate. It takes a lot of time to build and seconds to destroy. And so, it's important for us to be self aware, to bring balance, and to understand that if there is no autonomy in your environment or with your team, there's definitely an absence of trust because they're connected and they're directionally proportional. So, it's something to keep in mind, right? If we trust, there is autonomy. If there is autonomy, then there is trust. Okay. Okay, so we're right at the Q&A portion. I'll give it a second or two. If anybody has any questions, either in the chat or on YouTube. So let me take a look and just make sure that there are no questions before we continue. And it looks like we're okay. So I'll go ahead and wrap it up. So we offer a great deal of training and support resources for our managers, practical tools and things that you can use. For registering for the event, you will receive a copy of the webinar deck. And you can look for any and all of our programs that are available. We're going into the new year, so we're super excited to feature some new and additional topics and programs. So check those out on our website. And of course, we have our management planner here that is our milestone product. And we recommend that all managers get a copy. It's inexpensive. It's a great tool. And it covers both leadership and management functions and has been revised as of this past year. So check it out. And then, of course, if you're looking to level up on your strategic areas, please check out our strategic management collection. We have a host of new tools that were just added this year to help you guys be effective, enjoy your management role, and get the most out of your teams. Okay, and with that said, here we go. We could, I think, wrap it up now. Thank you so much for joining. We appreciate your time and energy, and we hope to hear from you. If you have any feedback or any comments, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll catch you next week for our last and final session for week 5 on igniting motivation with your team. Okay? Thank you so much. Take care.